All right, I think we are ready to make a start. Hello, everyone. I would just begin today by acknowledging that I'm facilitating this webinar from the lands of the Kaurna people. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from those joining from around the country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We from DVE extend our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who have joined our webinar today. So a very warm welcome to everyone to the next instalment of the DVE webinar series. Today's webinar, hopefully you're in the right place, we are looking at ideas for delivering first year student success. We'll be talking about the practical strategies to proactively support first year students and the approaches for enhancing student engagement and academic performance. My name is Sun, I'm a senior consultant here at DVE and I'll be facilitating today's session. So a little bit about DVE, we are a consultancy. We've been providing solutions for over 15 years in the higher education sector. We've worked with over 36 Australian universities and numerous TAFEs, RTOs, as well as private providers to deliver hundreds of projects across our main business lines, which include governance and compliance, organisational improvement, and digital transformation. We work across all aspects of the education lifecycle and support providers through initial and re-registration and accreditation, process improvement, student experience initiatives, change projects, communications, as well as system implementation. So pretty much anything, feel free to contact us. We've probably done a little bit in that space, if not a whole lot. Just touching on some housekeeping for this afternoon. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with everyone after today, so you will have access to this information afterwards. And as part of the Zoom webinar setting, you will be on mute throughout this session. As part of our agenda, we will first be hearing from our panelists who you can see on the screen with me today. We'll be talking about their ideas and their experiences in delivering first year student success. And from there, we've received quite a range of questions as part of the registration process. So we'll be going through quite a few of those and covering as much as we can today. You can also submit additional questions through the Zoom Q&A function, which might be on the bottom or top of your screen. And we'll try to answer some of them at the end if they haven't yet been covered. And please make sure to stay until the end to hear a special offer from DVE. So I'll now introduce the panelists for today. So Sarah Walker is the Manager of Engagement and Success at the Australian National University. She heads the team who are responsible for transition programs such as Orientation Week and community building activities that increase the connection that students feel with the university, each other and the local community. Through her 12 years at ANU, she has been responsible for designing, implementing, evaluating and managing a number of student-focused programs, and she was instrumental in the university opening transition programs to domestic students. Sarah's interest lies in developing further support for equity students. Ian Thompson is currently the Head of Consulting with DVE Solutions, having joined 3 years ago from the University of Adelaide. As the Director of Student Experience in his 8 years at Adelaide Uni, he was responsible for transitioning students from offer through to first year, and that included managing orientation and student communication throughout that journey. He is passionate about student success and in ensuring a proactive approach that is effective for all students. So I'd now like to invite Sarah to take the floor and share her thoughts and experiences with us on first year student success. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks so much. So yeah, kind of thinking through what factors I think really support students to be successful in their first year. And for me, it really comes down to two different things. One is the connections and sense of belonging that students feel to their university community. And this is something, so in addition to my professional role, I'm actually undertaking a research degree as well. And my research degree focuses on the sense of belonging that students have at university and how that's impacted by their participation in orientation programs. So, the research really highlights the importance of this connection that students form, and the sense of belonging that they feel during their time at university. And the impacts from belonging include deeper learning and academic achievement. So it actually impacts on the GPA of students when they have an increased sense of belonging. It also leads to better well-being and mental health. And that doesn't mean things go perfectly all of a sudden because you feel like you're part of the community, but it means that students actually have the resources and they reach out to the support that they need to be able to overcome those challenges when they occur. And it also then, leads to greater persistence in terms of both retention, but just obstacles that they face during their time in general. And the thing that is really key about this as well, I think, is that it shows that research has demonstrated that this is particularly true for students from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds, that the stronger their sense of belonging is to the university community, the more that they feel like they're actually part of that community, and that they have authentic, valid experiences as part of that. And it means that they're more likely to stay and continue, which is, very much a goal of trying to have traditionally underrepresented students in higher education, not just getting them in, but that success all the way through. And then the other aspect, considering my research is focusing on orientation and sense of belonging, is that, intentional orientation programming and the transition pedagogy embedded into the curriculum. And that participation in transition programs, it has lasting impacts on retention. Again, similar themes on well-being for students, on their engagement with the university throughout their time, and the likelihood for successful completion of their degree. So, and it's also an opportunity for students to really connect in and form that sense of belonging. And, one of the things that we're looking at in particular is that focus on transition pedagogy, because putting that into the classroom means that it has that greater ability to actually reach a larger range of students. I know for us this year, we had a fantastic year with our O Week just a couple of months ago, where we had 60% of commencing students attending at least one orientation event, which is, kind of peak for us at the moment. But what that means is that there are 40% of commencing students who did not engage in any orientation activities. They didn't get some of the basic information and introduction to key supports and services, and peers, and everything else that really are essential for helping students have that foundation for the rest of their time during their study. So being able to have that actually in the curriculum, it just means it has greater reach that way. So those are kind of my two key focus areas.
Thank you, Sarah. That was fantastic to hear. Over to you, Ian.
Thanks, Sean. Probably no surprise, because Adelaide always has to be better than everyone else. So I've got 4 areas rather than 2, but that's just an Adelaide thing. I couldn't think of a clever acronym for this, but it's there's 2 S's and 2 F's basically in this, and they are pretty similar to what Sarah's talking about. I think the first thing is about setting the student up properly to succeed. Part of that is having the clear transition from what future student to current student. So where do they move in that funnel? Is it wherever it is it enrollment? Is it admissions? Is it accepting an offer? Is it getting an offer? However you do it, there's got to be a very clear transition so that somebody is always responsible for the student journey and there isn't a gap. And we often see gaps in many universities. And part of that is, Sarah used the word intentional. So it's intentional, it's proactive. It isn't just something you hope happens, it's something you have to actually drive. So setting the student up, getting them involved. O Week, think of O Week as an event, not as orientation. Orientation is something that maybe at its shortest will take 3 months, maybe at its longest is 12 months. But orientation is a process. O Week is an event, and O Week is a key part of it, but you can't do everything in that week and then hope it's all right. So setting it up, I think, is important. The second thing is around, I guess, support, or the second S. Generally, we try and expose students to all the different support functions in a university, But of course, what universities do is have silos of effort and management barriers in the way. So there will be 30 different areas that a student needs to interact with that all promote themselves slightly differently. My view is that there needs to be a one-stop shop. You can't expect a student to remember all the places to go to. So there should be online and in person a single place to go, and that place can refer you or send you anywhere. So support and a proactive outreach to students on that support. I'll probably talk later about student buddies or some sort of process of not having students opting in, but actually just trying to almost forcibly involve every student in the process. So they have to opt out rather than opt in. The third one, I think, crosses over into the academic area, particularly. It's feedback. Students desperately need feedback. So when they come in and they do their first assignment, their first tutorial, their first lab session, whatever it is, they need positive feedback from the academic. So the tutor, the lecturer, whatever. If you don't get feedback, you're in this world of being lost. And the world of being lost is one that no one's comfortable in and you want to drop out. So feedback is, I think it's got to be in there. And the last one, I think, is exactly the same as Sarah said, it's friends and belonging. If you make friends, if you develop a support network, it's actually harder to drop out because you don't want to leave your friends behind. So when you have a bad day, and students do have bad days, and students will fail assignments, or heaven forbid for some high-performing students who suddenly get a pass and have never had a pass in their life because they've always been a distinction student, and this pass is the end of the world. But you'll have those days, but it's the friends that get you through, and it's the networks that get you through. And whether you form them through your degree, through disciplines, through faculties, through sport, through clubs, whatever it is, but it's a process of helping students develop friends and networks. And if we do that right, I think we're halfway down the road to that student success. I think as a last point, if you did log on today thinking you'll hear this one thing that is the solution to student success, sorry, you're going to be disappointed because there isn't one thing. So on top of the things that I think Sarah and I have talked about, there's the 1%ers. There's actually hundreds of things you need to just do right, and from facilities, to lecture theatres, to basic service, to having forms that are easy to use, people that are easy to contact. There's so many little things that you need to get right. And it's only when you get all of those right, hopefully you'll retain and most people will succeed. You'll still lose some because that's life, but you've just got to make it easy to do business with your institution if you want to retain them. One last point, sorry, something I'll say is the changing degrees. So people have come to uni and have made a mistake. They've gone into something they thought they would love and they don't. Changing to a different degree is a success story, not a failure story. So you've got to make that easy and encourage people to do that, because the alternative is you drop out. Not many people will persist for 3 or 4 years in a course they hate. So if you've gone in the wrong one and you want to change. And I'm an example of that. I went and did economics because my dad said it'd be good. And I wasn't a failure in any sense, but I did first year economics and passed it well, but thought, do I want to spend the rest of my life being an economist? And clearly the answer was no. And so I changed. But that was a good thing. That it turned my whole university life around. So making it easy to change is an important thing in there as well. Not everyone gets it right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you, Ian and Sarah. That was a fantastic start to our discussion today. It was really interesting to hear from both perspectives, both the research and the academic, and transition into the academic space, as well as that sort of on the ground activity in terms of bringing together all the different services to connect with students in many different ways. So we'll be going into this in a bit more detail in the next 45 minutes that we have together. For everyone who might have missed at my introductory session just a bit earlier, there is a Q&A function that is somewhere on your screen, maybe the top, maybe the bottom. It's on your Zoom menu somewhere. So you can submit questions to this, and we will have some time to answer any that pop up towards the end today. All right, so just moving into the questions that we received during the registration. So first one off the bat, Ian and Sarah, how can we make meaningful connections with students and get essential information through to them? For example, to meet their admin requirements or to take up the support services. What is it that first year students really want in their first year?
They want things to be easy. Look, I mean, and I think, you know, some of it is finding ways to facilitate the connections so that it's not kind of out of place. And I think Ian even said, you know, not necessarily opt in. You know, I know for me, I come from the US. I look quite often at the way that they do their orientation programming, and they're quite often orientation is actually a mandatory activity. So specifically talking about, you know, a 3 to 5 day period. And part of what a number of the institutions do over there is that not only is it mandatory, but you're actually put into small groups with later year students to help facilitate some of those conversations and have those discussions. But, you know, this is also done in various ways through, you know, cohorts that can move through classes together. But I think really coming down to it, finding ways to have that kind of individualized or small group engagement for students, because they get the opportunity not just to ask their questions and find out the information that they need, but they get to hear from other new students and realize that some of the questions and concerns that they have are things that other people have as well. And, you know, kind of starting to normalize some of those, you know, some of those challenges that people face and normalize the fact that people will use different services and will connect in, you know, to various supports. I think that that's really useful, because I know that for, you know, speaking to students here, we've had students who will be in their second year of university who have gone through the entire time not realizing that other people actually use the academic skills team to get support and advice and guidance, because they just thought that it was something that nobody used and that they would kind of be, you know, seen as not as academically skilled if they went to use something like that. So being able to kind of, find some of the ways to break down some of those barriers and normalize those uses, I think is really useful to get students to engage.
And look, I'd add to that, to me, there's two parts of information. One is the amount, the stuff you want to push out to the students. So you won't actually want to get it to them. And I'll come back to that. And the second bit is the information you want to have available for them to find as and when they need it. So the one-stop shop is to me is the key thing. So it's a service center, whatever you call it, on campus or a thing online. I remember taking sort of the website from about 30 different places you could go to one, and on that one it gave you links to everywhere, so you only had to remember one place, and if you went to that one place you could then find everything. But previous to doing that, it sounds so logical, I thought, but previous to doing that you had to actually go and find 30 different places, and students can't do that, so they often end up not even knowing the service is available. Bear in mind, when you come to uni on day one, you don't think you need all that support. You don't come with mental health issues, and well, some do, but you don't come with all that. You don't come with this, I'll need support in maths or I'll need support in writing, because you think you're okay. You know, and it's only as you get into it, you find that, oh, I do need help here, I do need help there, but then you can't remember where it was. So make it easy to find. We've done a lot of student journey mapping, and I think one of the key things for us is when you look at emotion, when a student starts, they're excited because this is a life-changing event, but they're also nervous and scared. And so you're trying to balance these different things. So you can be very lonely in a group of 6,000 new students. And we did, I think, just what Sarah was saying, we broke it down. Adelaide's intake used to, undergraduate intake was about 6,000 new students each year. And so we would divide them up into groups of 15, and I would recruit 400 buddies, as I called them, and they were third or second year, third year, fourth year students, and they'd all get all 15 people. So whether you wanted to or not, you were allocated to a buddy, and the buddy would ring you before O week and ask how you're going. Have you enrolled? Have you done all the stuff? Have you got any questions? And then they would say, let's meet on the first day of O week. And we're going to meet by the big tree out of however they sort of worked it out. And they would meet their 15 people, and they would stay with them all day for 2 days. So on a general first day and then on a faculty day. And they were people from the same discipline area. So we allocated the students from medicine with buddies from medicine and so on. And they worked with them and they stayed with them all semester. So they'd talk to them during O week. They'd meet them again for a coffee after a couple of weeks. And it took a bit of logistics to put all this together. And it was a bit of a nightmare the first time. It was easier the second, easier the third. But it was so good to have this group of 15, not a group of 6,000. And so powerful because they could talk. You know, and the campus tour that took about 2 hours, and if you know Adelaide, you know it's a pretty small campus, so 2 hours was, you spent a lot of time together talking. That was so powerful. So I think, you know, making it small and making it personal is got to be the secret to this, not just one of 6 or 10 or 20,000. I know if you're at a bigger university with, you know, 60,000 or 80,000 students, that first cohort is very big, but also so is your second year, third year, fourth year cohort. So recruit more buddies. I didn't pay them. I fed them, but which always works. But it's such a powerful thing, and it increased that attendance. Obviously, there was no punishment. We told everybody orientation was mandatory. There was no punishment if you didn't. But I reckon we took numbers from about 40% attending to about 70% attending, you know, really through the buddies. So it's such a powerful thing to do.
Fantastic. Thank you both. I think that's just reflecting on my own experience as, you know, school leaver going into university. You go from a very small community, close knit, who's gone through this transformative sort of year 12 experience, and yeah, to get launched into this anonymous crowd of 6,000 or more is very daunting. So that small group experience is just so valuable in that peer connection. All right, next question. How can we encourage our students to lean into their course progression and academic and skills development when content naturally becomes more difficult, particularly in trimester or block models of study? Who'd like to start?
I'm a radical on this. I think the current semester model is not great for a lot of students because you're doing 4, so I'll say subjects, but I know you all have, you know, whether it's units, topics, whatever you want to call it, but you're doing 4 subjects at once. And despite our best efforts, there'll be 4 first assignments all due in the same week. There'll be 4 big assignments or big essays all due. There'll be exams all at the same time. I think students do better when they do less topics at a time. Now, whether that's as far as sort of the VU model, the block model of 1 at a time, I'm not sure. But there's plenty of universities looking at either trimesters or where probably you do 3 at a time, or 6-week blocks where you're only doing 2 topics at a time. I think there's some real value in being a bit more intensive in less topics at any one time. And I think that the students that I've talked to and the ones we've interviewed really find that, I think, just a breath of fresh air to be able to be more intense in some topics, but not so not so many topics at once. So if you can manage progression and all that within that, I'm a fan of that, and I know there'll be some people who are not, but that's yeah, up for debate.
Yeah, I mean, I think for those who probably aren't able to make those kind of changes, Ian, you know, I think being able to have students connect in with academics. So the research has shown that if a student is able to connect in with an academic and form a relationship, so again, coming back to this whole idea of the sense of belonging, that they're actually more likely to reach out for engagement and support with other academics. So being able to find ways to really kind of facilitate some of those connections between first-year students and an academic. And I guess the reason that I'm mentioning this is because, you know, that whole idea where if they need that support with their courses, with the progression, with the increased academic expectations, being able to have some of those relationships and somebody in that space that they feel comfortable talking to and being able to go and ask the questions and seek the support and advice just means they're more likely to actually do that. So I think, you know, kind of even at that level, being able to help with those relationships will hopefully support the academic progression along the way as well.
Can I add that David Lloyd, who is the Vice Chancellor at UniSA, I heard him speak once where he said that the best thing a student can do is form a relationship with an academic. And the next best thing they can do is form a relationship with another academic, you know, so there is, yeah, just being able to talk to academics, incredibly valuable, but incredibly scary for somebody in their first year, you know, so just walk down the corridor and knock on my door is not something that too many first year students are going to do willingly. So making that process easy is important. So making academics sit in a hub has been an interesting thing that some unis have tried, I know, not always successfully, but yeah, getting academics close to students, very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, you know, again, like I still am not sure how I'm supposed to approach an academic I haven't spoken to before. Like, do I refer to them by their title and their last name? Do I just call them their first name? And I've been at this institution for so long, and I still am hesitant when I have to reach out to an academic that I don't know. So I can only imagine how much more daunting it is for a new student. And that's why they do have, you know, one of the things that's quite popular, again, in the US, sorry, that's where a lot of the research is based in this kind of space. But they do these first year seminars where for a first semester, one of your 4 classes that you're taking is actually specifically focused on, you know, kind of learning about the academic expectations, doing writing, learning critical reflection, analysis, all this kind of stuff. But it's done in that small group environment of 25 students and an academic, sometimes some later year peers as well. But again, to be able to kind of, you know, facilitate some of that relationship so they get to know an academic really well to help with that comfort level. And again, that's that really intentional process that they're going through where they're making sure that they're building these really strong relationships for students and facilitating these opportunities and kind of almost forcing them into the opportunities to connect in with the academic. Because yeah, it's definitely scary.
Oh yeah, thank you. I might go slightly off script because we've got a really interesting question that's been submitted. Sorry, Ian and Sarah, to throw a little grenade. But I think it dovetails really nicely into just this discussion about facilitating that sense of belonging. So Craig has asked, are there some unique insights or strategies that would be valuable for facilitating a sense of belonging and relationships for online students who may never attend a campus?
I'm trying to think if there's something I can think of off the top of my head that's been really, I think the thing is there are some really good kind of practical things that can be implemented that would be effective for online students. So there's this social belonging intervention by these researchers, Walton and Cohen, that has been wildly popular because it's an hour-long intervention, and it's shown impact up to 4 years after the fact. And so that's, that's pretty good value for effort with it, but they've actually run the intervention as an online intervention. Sorry, I couldn't think of another word there. But they've done it online as well, and it has been shown to still have impacts, both in the sense of belonging, in the GPA and the academic outcomes over time. So, something like that can be utilized for online students as well. And then the other one, and again, this one is really for any students, whether it's online or in person, but it has that opportunity to help, I guess, online students feel connected. There's actually been some work done that has shown that giving students university branded merchandise actually increases their sense of belonging. I think it's one of my favorite pieces of research, because that's just such a good reason to be able to give students university branded merchandise. But having that physical product that actually states that they are part of this community, that this is something that they belong to, that they can wear, that they can have with them, it's kind of a subtle reminder for them on a regular basis that they are part of this bigger community, even if they're not physically there. It still kind of helps tie them in. But I'm sure Ian has some other suggestions.
You stole my thunder a bit on the merchandise there.
Sorry.
So about 6 years ago, I think we did a simple Bonds T-shirt that was University of Adelaide, and I'd buy 6,000-7,000 of them, and they have class of. So if you look at the American model, I guess they always talk about the class of 2020 and this sort of thing, but for them it tends to be a graduation class. So many part-timers in Australia in a different model. Not everyone graduates as a cohort at the same time, but they often start at the same time. So we twisted it round to class of 2020 were all those who started in 2020. And whether you were online or face-to-face, you still got the shirt. So we would get it to you if you weren't coming to campus. So you did get that feeling. I'm part of the class of 2020 or 2022, whatever year you're going to do it. And we changed the shirt every year, so they were unique for each year. So, and there's nothing bad about, of course, all these people running around in your branded merchandise. It's fantastic for your marketing as well. The other thing I think specifically with online, that this idea of a small group cohort and a buddy works online as well. So creating a chat and allocating a buddy to 15 online students and being able to get together and talk on an ongoing basis during the first year, it can still be just as powerful online. So, and the buddy is not a person who solves all problems. The buddy is just somebody who facilitates this group coming together, and can say, oh, you can get help for that, go here. Well, look here, you certainly don't want your buddy being a counselor or a psychologist or anything like that. But the buddy system works online just as well as it does face-to-face. You just have to do it slightly differently. But you can still meet, you can still have the coffee catch-ups, you can still do those things, just do them online.
Brilliant. Thank you both, especially for letting me go off script. So our next question that we've got here that we pulled out of the hat, do you have any comments about the concept of 100-day onboarding, which goes well beyond O-Week and census? Ian, would you like to start?
Just do it. Just do it. I think of a job, you start a job, and what are you interested in that first day? You want to know where your desk is, you want to know where the toilets are, where to get coffee, how many times you're allowed to go and get coffee for the day. There are all these logistical things, and then at some point you'll start to work out, I'm supposed to do something, and someone will talk about performance, but it probably won't be first day. Being a student's no different to that. You come on and you're in a whole new environment. If you're a school leaver, even if you've come out of a big school, it's nothing like a university, because that's huge. your learning is different. You're no longer spoon-fed. You're expected to work these things out yourself. The teacher, you don't have that same teacher all the time. It's a whole new world, and it takes a while. So, you know, I think it takes a minimum 100 days. I think it has to go the full year, in fact. And success is how many people progress through the year and enroll in second year. It's not how many really are there at that first census date. It's there how many are there in for year two, either in the same degree or a different one, but they're there. So I absolutely would do it. Just wouldn't even consider it being a week anymore.
Yeah, look, I agree, Ian, and I think you kind of mentioned this earlier as well. The idea that transition, it's not a set time frame for any one person, and transition is really impacted individually based on how that change, how it changes our roles, our relationships, our assumptions, and kind of our world perspective. And so for every individual person, it's going to be a completely different set of time. For some, it's going to be a day. It's going to be a day, and then they're going to be fine. They're going to feel set, and they're going to go on. But for others, yeah, it can take 12 to 18 months to really feel settled, like they know what they're doing, they're comfortable and confident with everything. And so this idea as well of being able to take more than a couple of days to try and hammer all the information into students, because nobody remembers that anyhow. And that's why, you have the communications before they arrive, then you have a week, and then you have all the information, available online, and handbooks and just, being able to really spread that out, be very intentional about the timing of when things happen. And I think one of the things that I love as well is being able to do something like a family weekend a couple of months into a semester, so that what you do is you actually have students invite their family and friends. I should state very clearly, though, we have not started this yet. It's something that, kind of COVID ended up taking over us being able to implement our first one. But the idea being, again, from the US, sorry, that's what I'm doing, but that you actually have students invite their family and friends onto campus, because what happens is they're 3 months into their time as part of this community. And so when they first arrive, they have to ask everyone directions for places. They have no idea where to go to get coffee, to get the cheap lunch, to, go take a nice walk. 3 months into this, they think that they don't know these things until they have family and friends who are there, who they're starting to then take around. They're going, oh, this is where I have such and such class, and this is the route that I take to get here, and this is where I'm working. And so all of a sudden they go from being this person who has to ask all the questions about where things are to actually realizing how much knowledge they have. And it becomes part of this cycle of realizing that they're actually part of the community, that they are there and belong there, because they're now showing that to somebody else. They're now being able to share that knowledge with another. So it's a really lovely kind of point for them to kind of reaffirm that the transition is part of their process, and that they have come a long way since the beginning.
Oh yeah, just brilliant. Now, are there any different approaches that you would take when working with first year postgraduate students?
Yes and no, I think is the answer on this. It's brave to assume that postgrad students just know it because this is their second degree and they know what they're doing. Clearly, if they've been at the same uni, if they've been in an undergraduate degree at the uni and they go straight on to postgraduate, it's probably pretty easy. But a lot of people do a postgrad degree at a different university, so they actually still don't know anything about that university and how it works. And so there is a whole lot of learning there. And I think they want the same things. They want to belong. They want to feel part of the community. Maybe they don't want to make friends the way a school leaver does, but they want to make networks, and they want to, they're far more network driven and job opportunity driven. So they want to engage with a careers service. They want to see what opportunities there are to meet an academic and get on sort of board with an academic. I think the reality is so many of these things are the same, but you probably, depending on what sort of university you are, or if you have a lot of school leavers, I would tweak my approach for postgrad to be different from a school leaver approach. But if you're at a place that's already got a lot of adults in your undergraduate entry, it's just treating them more like an adult, because they've probably got a family, they've probably got enough friends, but you know, they taken a big decision to come back to university to do more study. So they want to fit in, they want to feel proud of where they are. They still want the merchandise. It's the same, a lot of the same sort of things carry over, I think.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that that sometimes gets forgotten with postgrads as well is that the academic expectations and the way that you're expected to study and learn changes. You know, I know that I found it drastically different going from an undergrad to a postgrad, and going from a postgrad to research. Yeah, just I was not quite expecting it. And even, you know, I'm doing my research degree here at ANU. And so I've been a staff member for so long, and the amount of questions that I quietly teams to my old student central team to be like, I know that I should know this, but I don't know the answer to this question. You know, I think that is part of it, is there are still things that postgrad students don't know. And their experiences that they won't have run into during their undergrad. But as you said, Ian, you know, they do quite often, because of potentially their stage in life, have different needs. But then it's also interesting because there is an increase in undergrads who, you know, who have caring responsibilities, who are mature aged. And, you know, so again, finding ways to really have those meaningful connections and interactions makes it so important. I know that one of the things that is, you know, really helped me with my, you know, PhD is connecting in with another PhD student, and the ability for us to just sit in a room together and be like, oh, I am nowhere near doing this, or I haven't, you know, I feel like I'm so behind, and just being able to kind of share that relationship with each other and be like, oh God, it's not just me. You know, all along through that university journey, I think that those kind of opportunities really do make a huge difference.
Okay, so what specific strategies can we take to increase first-year student success in cohorts that are underrepresented in higher education? So, for example, those who are first in family or low SES backgrounds. Perhaps I might lobby this over to Sarah.
Cohort building, sense of belonging. I mean, really, so much of it, like, there's a lot, but a lot of it comes down to being able to help students feel like their background and their experience is valid, and that they belong at the institution, that the institution is a place for someone like them. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about the way the Walton and Cohen social belonging intervention works, is the intention of it is what it does essentially. So it's an hour-long workshop. Students learn about the experiences of other first-year students. And it's everything from, oh, I was struggling living in the residential halls, to academically, I wasn't sure how to reach out with my course convener. And they see how these are normal challenges that people face. And so what happens is they hear all these different stories, and then they're asked to reflect on their own transition experience and their own experience over the first few weeks or few months, and write about, you know, their own similar experience to then be shared with a first year student the next year. And what happens from this is that then when the students go away after the workshop, as they're moving throughout the day, as they're coming across these different situations, instead of going, oh, this is happening, or I'm finding this difficult because I don't belong at this university, they're actually switching their mindset, and they're going, oh, this is happening because this is a challenge that happens during first year. This is something that other people have also gone through. And so really just finding ways to try and make sure that there is an understanding that, you know, just because you run into a challenge, it's not because of you and your individual experience, it's because of the difficulty of transitioning and the different challenges that people face, and really making sure that students can like both find people who will confirm that, yes, they are a member of the community, and that can be later year students, it's academics, it's, it's pretty much anyone who they see as a traditional or authentic representative of the university or of the university community. And then, being able to connect in with other people that they see like themselves. I did some research over the past few years with students from low socioeconomic backgrounds at the university. And for all of the students, the connection with somebody else was the thing that allowed them to stay. That was the thing that really made the difference for them. And there was one student that I interviewed who was in their first year, had not made any connections, and in fact said that they felt like they were just meat in the grinder of the university, and they ended up leaving the university. And so really helping students find ways to be able to facilitate that through small groups, through peer-to-peer, through connections with academics. But it is really about the authentic relationships as well, because students know that they need to make relationships. And if all they're having is, people in the class, like somebody that they know that they can get notes from, but it's not somebody that they feel like they can actually have a conversation with and talk to, that's still not quite enough for them. Like, it needs to be true relationships and those authentic connections for them to be able to feel like they're part of that community.
Excellent. I'd add one thing, that the earlier you can do this, the better. And the best example I've ever seen was a group at Adelaide Uni ran a homework club for refugee students. And they did it for year 10, 11 and 12 students. Academics gave their time free. And 2 nights a week, these refugee students could come on campus from whatever school they went to. And they would run this homework club. And I'm sure we shouldn't have, but we gave them access to computers, and they could get on the internet and they could do all their research. Nearly every one of those students ended up coming to university and felt comfortable from day one because they'd been around the place during year 10, 11 and 12. So that was so powerful for a relatively small group, but they got that sense of belonging before they'd even started. The one thing I'd say is be careful of unintended consequences. That we also used to run a magnificent ceremony for scholarship recipients. And, there would be all these different mixed groups who'd been awarded a scholarship. And the group who got low SES scholarships would never turn up. And no one ever asked why, by the way. And then when we actually got around to talking to these students, it was, well, we don't want to be paraded across the stage as the poor people. If you got a high achiever scholarship, you were probably very happy to be on stage. If you got a low SES scholarship, you didn't want to be branded as that. And so while bringing your groups together is important, be a little bit careful about how you do it, because you can make a mistake and get that wrong.
That's probably the trickiest bit. I know that for us, we have a first year experience program that is for students from low socioeconomic, first generation, refugee backgrounds, rural and remote locations. But then we also have it open for anyone who just feels like they need help forming or want help forming that sense of community and connection when they arrive. And it's specifically as a transition program because, as you said, that whole ability to connect students in as early as possible is so important. And obviously you're talking about, even pre-university. But, we looked at how do we really make sure that we're supporting, these are all students who are leaving their community and their home support networks. How do we make sure that they can facilitate that forming of a new community as quickly as possible? But we opened it up for those same reasons. We don't want anything to, we don't want students to feel like, that they're being singled out, or that we're saying that they're, different in a negative way, but it's about trying to form those connections because when I spoke to the low SES students here, all of it was, they were like, oh yeah, no, I wish that there was something for, to help meet other low SES students and to do this and that. But I asked them the question as well of, well, would you have come to something that specifically said that? And they all told me no. So it didn't really help, but I was like, okay, well, at least, you want to meet other people, and that's all really positive.
Brilliant. All right, so we are running up to the end of our session today, but I will allow one last question because I think it's going to be really useful for those who are at the session today. I will just get Sarah an answer to keep your answers reasonably short. So how can we support and make use of cohort building and local innovation in a more with less environment, increasing centralization and hierarchy? Ian.
So more with less, I think. Use students, use incentives to get people together. My time at Adelaide, I did a lot of pizza for comment and donuts for comment, but if you get an opportunity to feed a hungry student, it's a great way of getting them together. So I would, peer-to-peer is really powerful, I think, and if you can use that, it doesn't cost you a lot of money, but it is effective. I'm also a bit of a fan of sort of a hub and spoke model that says, well, a lot of your initiatives should be controlled centrally, but are actually better delivered at a faculty or discipline level. What you don't want is a whole lot of programs all running off in different directions. So, but if you try and do everything centrally, it often fails. So, because you're just not close enough to the students and the academics. So I think if you've got some sort of model that has centrally controlled strategy and locally delivered, that hub and spoke model works, and you involve students in that as well. So got to be the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm looking maybe biased because technically I'm central. But from my perspective, like, I think handing over as much as you can to central that doesn't have to have, like, that isn't relationship building. The way that we've really approached it here is actually trying to take as much of the administrative burden away from, colleges and schools, because if we can do that, that means that they can focus on, creating those local connections and really spending the time getting to know the students so that then they can continue to support the students and really just forming those relationships and connections. So yeah, from my perspective, the more that you can hand over, the more time it actually gives you to take those opportunities, and then to find some of those cross-disciplinary collaborations as well to bring different cohorts together for the benefit of everyone too.
Thank you. I have learned so much in this last hour, so thank you both. I hope those who have joined us on the webinar today have also found it a really useful, insightful session and have plenty to take away. A couple of additional freebies from DVE. So first of all, we do have a student retention checklist, which you can find on the DVE website. It will just be under a tab called the Learning Hub. So feel free to go along and take a look at that. And as a thank you for staying until the end of this webinar, we are offering, DVE are offering free 1-hour advisory sessions to the first 3 organisations that contact us after this. So you can speak to any of our consultants and ask some specific questions and receive some immediate advice and recommendations around student retention and first year success. So all you have to do is email us at info@dvesolutions.com.au to secure your spots. All right, and that's all from me today. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sarah and Ian, so much for sharing your knowledge today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Ian.
See you next time. Bye.